I'm going to play a game of Marry, Kill, with Anthropic, OpenAI, and SpaceX. They're going to have fewer jobs, fewer money, fewer protections, and a lot of this is because AI.
Claude could do more than just chat now, but it could literally take control of a computer to complete tasks on your behalf.
And now a lot of teachers think, okay, so I'm basically training AI to replace me someday, and they're probably right. Hey everybody, and welcome into Prompt Response Podcast. Psyched for our first show here. I'm Dave Briggs, and we are making AI make sense. At least we are going to try to do that, Liv.
And I'm Olivia Smith. Yeah, on this podcast, it's all things AI. We're going to be talking one story, one tool, one conversation at a time. Okay, many stories, right? There's a lot of stuff around AI to talk about. But This week, we're going to talk about Anthropic's IPO filing and some other IPOs, why universities are struggling to adapt to AI in the classroom, and an AI-generated film making its debut at the Tribeca Film Festival. But first, Dave, let's start with Apple.
Yeah, man, Apple is the one biggest question mark, I think, out there in the AI space, because we've all been waiting for them to unveil something that changes the game. They had been so late to that game, so all expectations were for Tim Cook and his final Worldwide Developers Conference to just shock the world, the way we're used to like Steve Jobs or even Tim Cook doing that with the AirPods. Or, yeah, I don't know that he shocked the world with anything other than that. But really, the reaction today was kind of meh. They did unveil Siri AI and Apple Intelligence. But these are the two things we've been hearing about for years. And they also demonstrated them, Olivia. And here's a little glimpse at how it will change from what we're using now. One, you can grab your iPhone, ask Siri a question, and it will integrate with AI and your calendar and your photos, so it is within the ecosystem of Apple. And here's another example of how it's different, and I'll tell you why people weren't overly impressed.
Where is this exactly? Here, Siri can identify the location of this beautiful shot along the Santa Cruz coast. Oh, cool. Natural Bridges State Beach. My friend recently moved somewhere around there. I wonder if he's nearby. Where's Jeff's new place? I remember he sent his new address, but I really actually don't know where it is, and I certainly didn't save it anywhere. But Siri can just find it for me. Nice. So if I was being spontaneous, I could say, give me directions to the Arch with a stop at Jeff's. With a little world knowledge and some personal context, Siri's pulling it all together.
That sounds cool, but it doesn't, to me, sound like a game changer. Does it to you?
See, Dave, Apple used to be at the forefront of everything. And like you said, it feels like it's really late to the AI race, right? I mean, no, my mind wasn't blown. I'm kind of like, okay, this should have happened a year ago. Yes, it's very cool. As you said, I want to be able to get directions and pull addresses from my text messages. I have friends who I've known for decades who are always texting me like, what's your address again? And I'm like, how could you not be more organized? Me as a very organized person, I kind of want a level up from this. It's like I have everyone's address in my phone. Yes, it could help speed things up, but I'm more impressed by things like Claude, Cowork, which I want to get to later today. It could literally take over my computer and do things for me that will save me hours of time, right? I've been impressed with OpenAI and what ChatGPT can do, and I could speak to it. It speaks back really well. I still find myself struggling with Siri. I could ask Siri to set a timer. I could ask Siri, for the weather, but I really haven't been able to have those in-depth advanced conversations with AI. Maybe that will change now, but again, not totally blown away.
Yeah, I've never had many conversations with Siri where I do with other chatbots. I will try once this is unveiled, but it's not until later this year. It won't be available in the EU because of restrictions. It won't be available in China, and that's part of the reason I was watching during this performance and unveiling the stock price. And the stock price basically opened here and just kind of did a nosedive throughout. Not massive losses, but clearly investors saying, meh, we're not overly impressed. And basically the stock is down about $3.50 a share. Not what you wanted to see. If this was impressive to investors, it would be a 5 or 10% because they're waiting for that real blockbuster unveiling. But we all have to admit, we're obsessed with these devices. We all have these devices. There are 2.5 billion worldwide. So I'll say this, even though they're late, even though they are years behind their competitors, I wouldn't bet against Apple because we're all obsessed with the ecosystem. So whenever they get it right, I think they could still catch up and leapfrog anybody in this game. Maybe not Anthropic, who we'll talk about in a bit, but I don't think that's their goal. Could they pass an OpenAI? Could they pass a Grok easily? I still think there's a chance Apple pulls a rabbit out of their hat. But the other big news was Tim Cook saying goodbye. Just a quick glimpse of his farewell, Olivia.
It's been the honor of a lifetime to help advance that mission with teams whose creativity, care, and conviction continue to make a lasting difference in people's lives. Thank you all for joining us. Let's have a great WWDC.
Okay, that's goodbye to Tim Cook, the longtime CEO of Apple. I'm left with this question. Look, no one's ever going to be Steve Jobs, ever. We're never going to have one of those ever again, at least in my estimation. Maybe Sam Altman is that. Did Tim Cook change the world? Most would say no, and it wasn't that impressive. I think the AirPods changed life for the worse. Like, I love them, but the fact is, go through New York. I don't know about the left coast, but if you walk through New York, almost everyone is wearing AirPods. And that, to me, really did change the world.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I love my AirPods. It is a little different here, though. LA is much more spread out. We're not all walking around. So I see the pros and cons for sure. But that said, I'm excited to see what Apple, comes up with. Like you said, it's not out yet. When it comes out, I really hope I am blown away. Right now, I think we all felt meh, basically because we were expecting this and it's meeting the threshold, right? It's meeting what's already out there. I want to see it surpass that. I want my mind to be blown, and I'm hoping for that, considering I have an Apple iPhone and I do love Apple products.
I'll say one more thing about Tim Cook. Apple TV, to me, has been a huge win. I mean, some of my favorite shows of all time, like 2 of my favorite 5 shows in the history of television, are Apple TV. Now, maybe those would have been elsewhere, or Netflix or Amazon. I don't know.
What
maybe
are they?
Apple
Now I
was
have
the
to ask.
one.
What are
Ted
your
Lasso and Shrinking, 2 of the great shows of all time. And maybe they were the only ones that were ready to make that show, Friends and Neighbors, which is out now. So that ended up, we could look back at it and say, Tim Cook built a TV giant. Do you watch either of those?
I watch all of those. Yeah, and I completely agree. I think we're so used to streaming now that you more so focus on the show, not where it lives. But that said, I do watch a lot of Apple content. So good point.
So who knows? Maybe Tim Cook's history will be written in 10 or so years. All right, let's switch to, you did mention Anthropic a minute ago, and this is the biggest year probably for IPOs in the history of the world. That is a stunning statement, but it's a true statement, at least in terms of the United States markets, because what we're going to have is SpaceX IPO, probably Friday, we believe, and that includes Grok and Starlink and others. And then we're going to have Anthropic. They have filed. We believe that will happen this year. And lastly, OpenAI will also, we believe, go public in the 4th quarter. SpaceX, 1.77 trillion. OpenAI, 852 billion, and Anthropic just bigger, just shy of $1 trillion. SpaceX will be a top 10 company in the world. It's stunning, Olivia. 3 companies at or north of $1 trillion. But what does this mean to our neighbors, to our friends, to our parents? What does this mean for most of us?
Yeah, just a few years ago, AI was looked at as a research project, right? Like people were playing around with it. A lot of companies were telling their employees don't use it. Now we're seeing such a massive shift in just such a short amount of time where these AI companies are attracting valuations that rival some of the largest businesses in the world. It is crazy. So we're seeing that industry move from experimentation to commercialization. What does that mean? Where are you going to put your money, Dave? Are you going to invest in any of these?
That's a great question. Okay, so I was thinking about this earlier, and you don't have to play because this is a little too much. I think this will be too much for you, but I'm going to play a game of marry, kill, fuck with Anthropic, OpenAI, and SpaceX. I'm going to do it. If you want to play, go ahead. Who would I marry? Anthropic. Easily for me, that's not a tough choice. I would marry Anthropic. I think they're going to have the most revenue. Long term, they're working with businesses, and they're also leading with caution. That's who I'd bet on. Who would I kill? Easy one. I would kill Grok. Now that's killing SpaceX because of the IPO. I'm not impressed with Grok. They allow explicit images of children to be made. That's been the biggest headlines with Grok. I don't trust Elon Musk when it comes to content moderation. I don't hear any businesses using it. So that's an easy kill. And who would I fuck? OpenAI, because it is still going to be a massive winner. I love their images. I use them for this podcast just about every day. I still use Google Gemini a lot. They're left out of this conversation because they're already public. But that's my marry, kill, fuck. Do you want to play that game or no?
I would play, but I totally agree with you. I'm sorry, I know that's kind of boring, but I may have wanted to marry OpenAI like even just a week or two ago, but really using Claude Cowork and Claude Code has changed which platform I'm using. Like that has really brought me over to Anthropic. I also do love how they're out there with, more in terms of like safety and protection for people. I really hope they stick to that in the future. We don't know what will happen with that, but I do like their principles. So I'm like, this is someone I could marry. And for the others, I completely agree. That said, I'm glad you brought up Gemini because Google can do so much. And so if they were in there, my answers may change. But right now, I completely agree. So I see why Anthropic is winning. And I think, I wish I had a ton of money to invest. But that said, some people think these are really overvalued. Do you agree with that, Dave? Do you think they're overvalued? And when the IPO hits, is it going to be too high? Will people lose money?
I think they're all overvalued. All three. I wouldn't invest in any of them, to be honest. You're talking about multiples that just make no sense whatsoever based on the revenues right now. No attachment to reality or to principles. So no, I would not touch any of them. I guess if you forced me to do one, it'd be the same answers as we had before, Anthropic. But I think they will both come down from the original IPO price. What's interesting about these three, Olivia, is they've brought together Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. Yes, OpenAI, SpaceX, and Anthropic have brought together Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. How? Well, Bernie is proposing legislation that would put a one-time tax on all three, 50% based on stock, not revenues. 50% back to the American people. Here's how Bernie explains his legislation.
It would do two extremely critical things. First, it would give the American people a direct role in determining the future of this technology. No longer would the future of AI be dictated by a handful of big tech oligarchs while the rest of the world sits back and watches them do what they want. Secondly, it would guarantee that the trillions potentially created by AI are used to improve the lives of all of us, not simply to make the richest people on earth even richer.
Now, I'm not a Bernie bro. But it's hard to argue with what he's saying there, and conservatives lost their mind when they heard him say that. And then yesterday, conservatives were like, oh shit. Because Donald Trump said this about his plan that is almost exactly what Bernie laid out. Public ownership of all of the biggest AI companies.
Where the American public essentially becomes a partner with the companies. And I will tell you, I have spoken to all of them. There's something very interesting about it, where it almost becomes a partnership with the American public. And we'll look into that.
They'll look into it. He says he's going to meet with all the CEOs of the major AI companies. No one has confirmed that, but what's your reaction?
We very rarely see these two people agree. And I have to say it does give me goosebumps because I think we're seeing, across the aisle here that people are also seeing the threat of AI, the money behind it. And yes, making the rich richer is something that is happening. And I think without regulation, proper regulation will continue to happen and create more divides, especially as the workforce feels the effects of AI as jobs are taken by AI. Yes, I hear the argument for there will be new jobs created by AI, but I don't believe as many as are taken, right? If something isn't done, if there's not enough regulation. So I think Bernie does make some excellent points. I do think he could sometimes be an idealist, but the fact that we see President Trump agreeing with him too, and to a certain extent here, I think is very telling. Do you agree?
I think it's truly stunning because typically this is the least conservative thing a president could ever say. But they have a stake in Intel. They got a kickback on chips from NVIDIA sold to China. Donald Trump is not a fiscal conservative. I actually am a fiscal conservative for the most part. And so my gut doesn't make me feel real good when the government takes ownership of a private company. But Olivia, this time is just different. And I agree with what you said. I don't think AI is going to create jobs. I think it will kill millions of jobs. I think we're just seeing a landslide begin in terms of customer service jobs, a couple million in this country. And so what it's going to do is just further sharpen the wealth divide, which is a massive problem. You're looking at a small pinprick, small group of billionaires and soon to be trillionaires who are going to get richer and richer and richer. And the vast portion of the American public, they're going to have fewer jobs, fewer money, fewer protections. And a lot of this is because AI. So look, we're never going to get a 50% tax on the stocks. That is just impossible. And that's just a talking point for Bernie. But Olivia, I think there's got to be some way to tax these AI companies when they are killing off American jobs, some type of tax that allows for, I don't know if it's a universal basic income. I don't know what to call it, but I know we're going to need something to spread some of this wealth around the country to help people out, because there's going to be millions out of work in the next couple of years. Even though you and I have talked about, there is no evidence yet of mass job loss due to AI. Zero. All the studies have said it is largely remote work and there is no direct tie to AI. I still think the government is going to have to find some unique way to tax that, like Elizabeth Warren is talking about. And even some conservatives realized you're going to have to find a way. Do you have any idea what that would be, though? How do we all benefit? How does humanity benefit from AI?
I don't know, Dave. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of benefits out there that people are talking about, right? But we've yet to see, especially around health, especially around things like curing cancer. I think that would really change a lot of our minds. But I think this does bring us to our next story, which is universities are realizing AI isn't going away. So the challenge is no longer how to ban it, but how to educate students in a world where AI is everywhere. And the reason I think this flows so well is we're talking about jobs and job creation and job loss. But where do you start before you are at work? You're a student, you're learning, right? So I think this is a part of it, right? Where people are getting their education, how they're getting educated, and how they're entering the workforce. And so what's really interesting is New York Times Magazine had this feature examining how colleges and universities are adapting to the rise of AI. And they focused on the California State University system, which educates 1 out of every 10 workers in the state, according to that article. So that is a huge chunk of the workforce, right? That's being educated in these systems. And what they did is they rolled out a ChatGPT license to allow students to use it and encourage AI use. But really, when it comes to that, there are so many things that are changing in the university. AI can do things like read your assignments, write your essays for you, answer all of your quiz questions for you, depending on the context. So I think a lot of the question comes down to AI. Is it helping people learn, or is it avoiding learning altogether? There are many questions. That's the first one I want to start with for you, Dave. What do you think? Is it helping people learn better, or is it replacing learning to some extent?
Well, I generally think it is dumbing down every one of us. And there's a lot of focus on young kids because that's who we should be most concerned about, because we're adults. I'm almost 50, so I already know how to critically think. I already know how to dig deep. I already know how to write. Kids don't have those skills, and many of them will not develop them because of AI. We're talking about college here, which is ground zero, because kids are going to grow up with AI tools. These kids in college are caught right in the middle. Do I go all in, Or do I go completely all out the way Daniela Amadei has suggested on going for a liberal arts degree because she thinks the importance of those are going to be greater? But generally speaking, I think it dumbs us all down, and most importantly, it makes us lazy. It stops us from doing the real deep critical and creative thinking. And the story in the Times is really fascinating because the CSU system, California State, took 17 million from OpenAI. They just signed up for another 13 million. That brings it to 30 million. And it seemed to me like the big takeaway when they talked to both students and teachers was confusion, chaos, and anxiety, and people just generally not knowing what to do with it. What did you take away?
I think there's a lot of lack of structure at these universities just because it's so new, but there needs to be some, I think, way for people to learn how to use it. It can't just be rolled out like, here's ChatGPT, go nuts with it. I do think people need to be educated on how to use it ethically and responsibly. And that is something I teach and consult on. So I'm aware of that, but I don't think many people are aware that this is something, you also have to learn, not just how to use it, but how to use it well. So I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, and when I teach, I always tell students if they're using AI, first I want them to think, why are they using it? And is it a justified reason? And then if they are using it, I want to see their prompts. I want to see what they're putting into it, how they're instructing it, how they're leading it. And I know that is one solution some instructors are using, is kind of looking at how the students are using it. Are they using it well? Or are they using it to think? Or are they kind of just using it and putting their work out there without reading it over, without checking it? There are other discussions of, should we have essays be back handwritten in the classroom? That is something that a lot of people are thinking about, which I don't think is a bad idea. Another solution could be, okay, we have them read the work and we know they read it because then we have them come to class and verbally discuss it out loud with each other, oral debates, oral discussion, which is something AI can't do. AI can read the articles, it can read the textbooks, it can write the essays, but it can't be the student in the class writing it by hand, and it can't be the student in the class verbally saying it. So those are two workarounds that I've seen proposed, but that can't happen everywhere because there are a lot of programs online too. So it's really tough. It's a really gray space right now. It's a scary space. I hope there are some more tools that can help it become, more responsibly used by students, because I do think it will impact how they think going forward, how they work in the workforce, and just like live their lives in general. Critical thinking is such a core skill to have. So I really don't want that to get lost. Yeah.
I'll just say two last things about this. One, I think it was just too much too soon. I understand what they were doing, but clearly they weren't ready for it. The teachers weren't ready for it. They didn't explain it enough. And now a lot of teachers think, okay, so I'm basically training AI to replace me someday. And they're probably right. So I think it was just way too much too soon. Let's crawl before we can walk. But the other, broad takeaway I have here is just if the teachers are going to be forced to incorporate AI, train them. Because most teachers at every level of education are saying, fine, you're telling us to use AI, but we don't actually know how. We weren't trained in it. Of course they weren't. They didn't go to school for it. And so until we develop a training mechanism, I think we need to pump the brakes a little bit, but I can't help but wonder, if I was a college student, what would I do? Like, would I go all in? I don't think so. I think I would go to be something like a football coach or go into sports where I would incorporate AI a little bit, but my brain doesn't work the way to go all in. I am a communication type. So I'd still continue onto the lines of, sports and or communication. I just incorporated a little more into my education. What would you dive in?
Yeah, that's a tricky question, because I'm thinking if I were a student, and now I think, as an adult, no, I wouldn't use it as much. But at the time as a student, people naturally, I don't want to use the term lazy, but they will push off other work so that their minds and bodies could focus on different things if they don't have to. That's just human nature. That's human instinct. So we're really putting the bone in front of the dog and saying, don't eat it. Like, it's not natural to us. If we can push off work, it's something that we want to do. It's just in our DNA, right? For survival, for foraging and finding the food and cooking the food. Like, if we could put off other tasks, we naturally will. So I would like to say no. I mean, I have to say, I'm sure many students, are tempted, and again, it's natural. So one thing I'm more of the mindset of like teach how to use it responsibly. And I know that's really hard to do. And again, people could, I don't want to use the term lazy, but people could still push it off. But for example, when I'm using AI, if I'm having it give me a detailed outline, I will give it all of my notes. I'll have it put together the outline. I don't just copy and paste that outline and send it off. I did this the other day. I spent an hour and a half rereading and rewriting the outline in my own words because it just sounded better from me. It made me more comfortable with the material. I think where we're seeing this offloading, where people aren't learning and taking away critical thinking skills, is when they just copy paste and send off that outline, right?
Whereas it never goes through your brain.
Exactly.
You never learn it.
You don't learn it. Whereas for me, I use it in a different way. So that's what I think people really need to learn how to do. I think the tools could save you so much time in a good sense. Like there are tedious tasks now that I have Claude Cowork that I had to go on my computer and do for me, which saved me 2 hours. And I wasn't just sitting and watching a movie in those 2 hours it saved me. I was literally going through notes for a class that I'm preparing. So, there are like tedious things that it can replace. It's the critical thinking that we don't want it to replace that. So it's really also just telling students why it's so important, not just saying do this, but explaining to them why and what can be lost if they don't, use it responsibly.
My recommendation is similar to yours. We're going to agree on a lot of these things. I was writing an email to several different college athletic directors today, and I wrote it myself, and I thought, you know what, I better run this over to Claude just to see their thoughts, and they did make some subtle tweaks and changes that I actually thought were solid. Now, some of the language they used would not come naturally out of my mouth, so I took that out, but I think they did make this outreach a little more effective. You mentioned watching a movie, Olivia, so let's talk about movies because that is the next frontier of AI that is already here. We do not need to speculate about it. We already have the first ever fully AI generated film submitted and on display, aired at a major film festival. It's going to run this week at the Tribeca Film Festival. It's called Dreams of Violets. It is about, and here's what's remarkable, it is about the Iranian protest in which 7,000 people were killed earlier this year. So we already have a major motion picture about something that happened earlier this year. Here is a clip from the trailer. Now, the filmmaker actually shot scenes across Iran and AI went ahead and made those interpretations of it. So she already was basing this on, it wasn't writing a script, it wasn't creating a story, but boy, did that look lifelike. I would not have known for a second that any of that was AI. Did you, though? You have a little better eye for this.
I just watched a few clips. I'm hoping that if I sat down and really watched it, I would notice. But I don't know, Dave. The technology may be at that point where we really can't tell. We knew it was coming. It might be here because I could not tell. That looked like a real film to me. That said, knowing it's AI really does bother me. I don't want to watch completely AI-generated films. There's something about knowing there are people in there, not like I care about meeting all the celebrities, but just knowing they're real people with real lives who might be at events people could attend or might be a guest on SNL and having relationships outside of their work. Like there's something about knowing there are real people as actors that I think is so innate and important and vital to the art that when I see this, I'm kind of like, very turned off. Like I don't want to watch it. That said, that doesn't mean it's not a great film. That doesn't mean it doesn't have good messaging in it. And I think a lot of the conversation too could be around, well, what if it's like an animated film, this is again where we're going to see a lot of work replaced. Very unfortunate, very stressful for people in this industry, considering how real and how good that just looked.
That's a really good point that I hadn't thought about. I had the same reaction. I will not see it because I have the same icky feeling. I don't want actors replaced. I do think this is a very unique situation in which you're not going to be able to use that actual footage without risking your life. And so this is pulling the curtain back on a scene that truly none of us saw what happened in Iran because of the blackout there. But as for animated films like an Inside Out, when that is AI in a couple of years, or maybe even later this year, would I see that? I might not even know it, but I probably would see it. This film was made for $2,000. It took 2.5 months to make. Think about that. A major motion picture cost $2,000 to make, and it was made in 2.5 months. That's astounding. And the reason I think there is a future for this model, filmmakers want to save money. Studios need to save money. And when you look at these two massive films in the movies right now, Backrooms and Obsession, like essentially independent YouTube type artist, Backrooms was made for 10 million. It made more than 200 million. Obsession was made for 1 million. It's already made 224 million. Neither of those are AI films, but my point is they were very low budget, very huge returns. So when studios and filmmakers see that dichotomy, I think they're going to continue to push forward.
Yeah, I agree.
You?
I agree. I agree, and I think it could be a scary world for what's the future of the art behind these films and the production that goes into it, and again, all of the jobs. But regardless, we're going to just see so many more AI generated films and shows out there. I just want to know. I really want to be told if it's AI or not. And I think the argument could be, well, if you can't even tell why do you care? And I'm like, a lot of that's like ethically I should know. I should have a choice in what I'm watching. And I don't want to be tricked into watching something that I'm not okay with, right? So I just really hope those disclosures stay evident.
I do think we will always know, at least while you and I are still old and still around, because the press is going to be all over this. All of the awards and festivals will clearly be able to detect it and want to label it for good or for bad. 20, 30 years from now, could something come off of YouTube that fools us all? Sure as hell wouldn't surprise me.
Next, I want to talk about the tool of the week. Claude Cowork. Dave, have you tried this yet? It is crazy what it could do.
No, I have not. I have not. I don't dive into a lot of the tools quite the way you do. So please break it down.
I will break it down, and I want to see if you're interested in it. But Claude could do more than just chat now. We also know it could code really well, but it could literally take control of a computer to complete tasks on your behalf. So think of it like an AI intern. It could click, type, navigate websites, and complete multi-step tasks. So for example, last night I had my computer running while I was doing some other work off my computer, and Claude, so basically it could take over your desktop. I had it go into my downloads folder, read some PDFs that I had been putting off, and summarize the PDFs for me. Then I had a browser tab open. It could also control tabs that are open in something like Chrome. I had it go into my Instagram account and update some things for me on my Instagram. It could edit your profile. It could literally do everything you do if you give it very clear steps. I wanted to edit my profile, look at my followers, clean up a few things. You could have it hop into Gmail if that's open in a browser tab and write some emails for you. It is insane how it could.
I just want to walk through this a little slower for the viewer. I asked Claude if it could clean up my LinkedIn profile if I gave it the login credentials. It said no. So what you're talking about is a different step, a different process, a different what, and how do I do that?
Yes. First of all, do you pay for Claude?
I pay for Claude.
Okay. And do you see a Cowork tab within Claude? I have it on the desktop app. So there's chat, Cowork, and code. 3 tabs that appear on the Claude desktop app version.
Okay, so it's specifically the Cowork tab that you have to open to access these features.
Yes. I know, sorry I was going into it so fast. I'm just like so excited by what this can do and how much time it's going to save me. So you would go into Cowork, you'd start a chat, and you would say, okay, Claude, I have my Chrome browser open. I have my LinkedIn profile open and logged in. I now want you to go and do these steps. And it should be able to access the site and do steps for you, as I had it do on my Instagram account for me last night.
That is remarkable.
Yes.
And that is not, Is that a job killer?
I don't know. For me, I was having it do tasks that I had to personally do and would have taken me like 3 or 4 hours. And I was using that time to do other work and spend some more time with my family. It wasn't taking my job away from me. It was doing things that I had to do without critical thinking. And I still had to tell Claude what I wanted it to do very specifically. Like I had to give it these directions so it knew what to do for me. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't just go in, I couldn't give it lazy instructions like go into Instagram and like edit my profile. It'd be like, what do I need to, it knows I need to click edit profile, but what does she want me to add? Does she want me to change her URL?
Right.
Does she want me to change her bio? Does she want me to go into her followers and she accidentally followed like 3 people, unfollow those people, or go to new accounts and follow some people that overlap with my business that I want to start getting some influence from, right? So I was giving it things like that. Again, when
it doesn't sound like a job killer. It sounds like an efficiency builder. And I have seen a lot of working moms specifically, like yourself, say AI is saving them between 5 and 10 hours a week. But what's funny is a lot of these moms have said on Facebook and whatnot that other moms are judgmental of them. They don't like that these women are using AI because they have this adverse reaction.
I mean, I haven't really encountered that yet. I'm sure that I've had people tell me when I used to work in AI, like, how could you work in that industry? It's taking away jobs. And, that made me feel really bad. But at the same time, I really wanted to learn it and understand it, which is why I chose to work in it, because I saw it coming. And I'm more of the thought of, I want to understand something, even if I don't like it, even if I don't approve it, I want to understand it. I don't just want to blanket say, I hate this, don't use it. That doesn't make sense. So yeah. I do like using a lot of AI to make my life easier and run it more efficiently. But that said, I like to use it. This is a form of assistant. It worked like an assistant for me. It'd be if I run my own business. I'm one person running a consulting company. There's a lot of tasks that I have to do. I wish I could hire 1 or 2 more people, but financially I can't right now. So AI is saving me a lot of money and a lot of time. And I have 2 small children. And if AI could do these tedious tasks for me as it was doing last night, I had more time to do other things. So yeah, there's definitely pros and cons to it. But I would say, Dave, try it out later. Let me know if you like Cowork because it is crazy.
I'm going to try it out. I've been told my LinkedIn profile sucks. So hopefully Claude can clean that up. They do not, my colleagues just say, man, it doesn't represent the half of you and what you've accomplished. So excellent show. We will be back with you next week. And please keep the suggestions coming. Send them to us on Instagram. Send us to them on any platform in which you find us. We want to know your feedback. Leave it below here on YouTube and tell us what you want to hear about next week. I wanted to get into sports next week. Some sort of AI sports story is coming. You got any tease for next week?
Sports? Well, you could educate me on sports, Dave. I would like that. Yeah. No, I'm just going to be playing around with some more tools that I'd love to teach you about, and we could get the audience involved. Please, let us know what you want to learn, because I'll learn it, and I could teach you on the show. And please follow Prompt Response for more.
You're teaching me. Thanks, Liv. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.